I still stand in line. Uh, and when the guy calls me up to walk up onto the deck of the trailer, uh, the first thing he says was, "Sorry, sir, sorry, son, we're not hiring secretaries." He says, "Well, have you ever done this type of work before?" I said, and I'm so confident that I tell the guy, "Hey, I've never done this type of work, but it's in my blood. My father's been doing it all his life." Literally, that's my answer.
That's your
And the guy,
qualifications.
and the guy, the guy says, "I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that." I find that trailer. I go to take the test. They make me a journeyman pipe fitter, and
Wow.
now I get my money. I'm like 3 weeks in, right? 3 months later, I'm a foreman.
Mhm.
6 months later, I'm superintendent.
Okay.
And my father still doesn't realize that I'm on the same project that he's on.
Right. I'm dying to ask, what did your daddy say about all this
I'm
swift advancement? Okay. Dr. Lael Alexander is more than a billionaire. He's a 21st century architect of progress, a strategic genius whose career has been marked by bold risk, world changing inventions, and a tireless commitment to building the future. He is my honored guest today. Where others chase influence, Dr. Alexander builds the platforms and the ecosystems that create it. Dr. Alexander recently completed the largest private intellectual property transaction in history, a $500 billion sale of his proprietary tech portfolio to global stakeholders, an unprecedented deal that immediately reshaped the landscape of power, innovation, and economics. Dr. Alexander is driven by an entrepreneurial spirit and a passion for technology and electronics. He started his first venture while at the University of New Orleans, where he pursued his degree in computer science and industrial design, and then went on to retool HR analytics while serving in the United States Navy. Dr. Alexander continued to press his thumb in diverse industries, transferring his skills from the energy industry to oil and gas, field services, and later into telecom. He holds 168 tech patents, including AI, data systems, defense, and energy inventions. Dr. Alexander founded his current company, Noitavan Inc., in 2011 to be an award winning global manufacturer of high quality mobile handheld devices and wireless solutions. Dr. Alexander has led Noitavan through tremendous high growth and product development. Under his leadership, Noitavan has become the go to consumer electronics design, house, and manufacturer for the world's premier brands. The company has offices in the United States, Dubai, Hong Kong, China, and Trinidad. He's also built and manufactured cities and is leading the redevelopment of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dr. Alexander, welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered, and thank you so much for joining us.
you so much for having me, Pamela. Thank you so much, Ms. Price. Looking forward to everything that you have on the agenda for this commentary because that opening was quite well. I think you covered it all.
Well, I know there's more. I know there's more. I'm just giving them a little taste and a little flavor to get us started. But you are such a dynamic, tremendous figure and historical influence in our world. So tell my audience what has been the journey from, I believe you're born in Los Angeles and went to the university in New
Well,
Orleans.
no. So here, I usually start off by telling everyone I was absolutely born in America and made in China,
Uh,
literally,
but
because believe it or not, I'm from a place called Edgewater, Louisiana. That's where I grew up. I attended Grambling State University even before UNO, and then you know during the time that we were in school, that's the early '90s. Some of us had a lot of responsibilities. I had an early family, and that family required that I take responsibilities that would compromise what I really wanted to do academically. So I saw the Navy as a great path for me to be able to take care of my family while continuing my education, right?
Right.
One thing led to another. While I was in the military, those 3 years of college prior to enlisting literally became a pretty great asset because I wasn't like the other kids. All of us were young kids, seamen's first time in the military. But for me, I was a young with family and 3 years of academic and work history going into the military. So they didn't really see me as a seaman or a young person. They saw me as a responsible kid that could actually shoulder a lot more responsibility. So um, TP Simons, that was the commander of the Strike Fighter Wing Pacific Detachment. That's the half of our military that protects the free world. I was his yeoman,
Okay.
and he entrusted in me the ability to do things way beyond my rate and my rank. By the time I left the military, I was a E4, and I was being saluted as if I was an officer because of some of the things that I had done in the military. A lot of special trainings, but you didn't bring me on here to talk about 30 years ago.
Well, that's
So
the journey.
it is the journey, though. It is the journey. When I transitioned out of the military into the civilian world, the natural path was to go back home to Louisiana, and in Louisiana, most of my friends and neighbors worked in the refineries, the chemical plants, and the refineries. So I didn't want to do that initially, but something unique happened. I actually took a job with Entergy, which is a pretty large utility company in Louisiana. And it was an administrative job. So I wasn't in the field or anything. I was on the 14th floor of Porter's Plaza in New Orleans.
Okay.
And I was, it was really a sweet spot for a person that was transitioning out of the military, administrative. You're now an executive in the energy field. And you would think that that's a high paying situation, right? Well, one weekend, I go home to visit my mother and father who lived in the country, the suburbs of Orleans. um, I said the suburbs because it's only like 15 minutes outside of the city. But we
Okay.
were in sugarcane land, right?
Mhm.
Edgewater, Louisiana. If you've looked at the show that Oprah put on air called Queen Sugar,
No,
it's
I haven't
based,
seen that.
well, if you ever have the time, take a look at it. It's Queen Sugar. It was based in my hometown. So uh, my family still owns 300 acres of sugarcane. We were sharecroppers, right? So in any case, I go back home to visit, and I'm seeing my father talk to one of my classmates about a project, and when they finished the conversation, I overheard him talking about the rate of pay that the guy was going to get on that job. So I asked my dad. I said, "Hey, how long has Jake been working with you?" And he says, "Well, he's been with us since you guys got out of school." I'm like, "So, and how much does he make?" He says, "About $20 an hour." And it kind of shocked me because I had went through 3 years of college, almost 4 years of the military service at that time, and a decent salary and wage was still not even adding up to 34,000. And
Mm.
it didn't take me very long to contemplate that my ex-classmate that had never gone to college or any of that stuff would be making my salary in 3 months.
Wow.
So it shook me. It shook me. I'm like, wait a minute, is this just optics?
Mhm.
Uh, I have a skill set. I know computer coding. I know how to design industrially. But yes, I'm sitting in an office because it looks good and it feels good.
Mm.
But it's not really giving me the economic stability that I'm expecting of the credentials, right? So I go back in, and my mom, my mom was one of those hidden figures. It's kind of interesting the power uh, levels at the home, because my mom was probably the breadwinner for most of my childhood, because she was a college degree graduate. She was an executive at one of the chemical plants. My dad worked in the field inside of one of those chemical plants, right? Union Carbide in Taft, Louisiana. So I would walk in and ask my mom, "Hey, do you think I could go ahead and do some of the things that those guys are doing?" And she would look at me like, "No, baby, I don't think that's for you."
Oh.
Like, oh, okay. So I asked my dad. He didn't think I could cut it, because uh, I guess he saw me as an administrative worker. Probably didn't want to get my hands dirty or what have you. And and I guess that was the case, because my mom probably felt the same way. And
Wow.
that left me with something. These little moments actually build. They actually give you something to build on. They don't really detract from you. They literally give you that little fire that you probably needed. So I'm looking at both of my parents, not realizing that their son. I thought at the time I was equipped to do just about anything, and here they didn't think I could rough it in the turnaround of a refinery or a chemical plant. So I
Mhm.
go I go to work that Monday, and I tell Mr. Harvey Noblock, "I don't think you're going to see me after lunch."
Wow.
And this is pivotal, because this is now 1998. This
Mhm.
is not even 6 months after me getting out of the military. And my career path is literally just starting. And he says, "Hey, son, I hope you know what you're doing." Says, "What are you planning on doing?" I said, "I think I'm going to go ahead and try to get on in one of these turnarounds at one of the chemical plants." He says, "You got a pretty cush job here. Advancements come pretty quick in what we're doing right here. You're in HR. You got a good mind." I'm like, "Sir, uh, I just don't think it's going to fit my time frame."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I leave there, and I leave. I leave. I get to this place where they're hiring. That's about 30-minute drive, and I still have my suit and tie. I still have my slick black shoes on. I don't have any work boots. I don't even understand what to expect, right? I just walk there with my briefcase. And as I walk in the line, I notice everyone standing there with their buckets, their tools, their
Wow.
boots, and I'm like, I'm a bit out of place right here. So I still stand in line. Uh, and when the guy calls me up to walk up onto the deck of the trailer, uh, the first thing he says was, "Sorry, sir, sorry, son, we're not hiring secretaries."
Oh my God. God.
Hey,
Oh.
no, so I never got a chance to tell this story, because people don't really know about why I started to do what I started to do, right?
Mm.
So here I am. I'm like, "Secretary? No, I'm here to work at this turnaround. I understand that olefins, which is a module in the plant in Union Carbide, is about to be shut down, and I want to apply to work there." He says, "Well, have you ever done this type of work before?" I said, and I'm so confident that I tell the guy, "Hey, I've never done this type of work, but it's in my blood. My father's been doing it all his life." Literally, that's my answer.
That's your
And the guy
qualifications.
and the guy and the guy says, "I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that." but who's your father? I said, Andrew Alexander. And he says, Rooster. And I didn't know that my dad was pretty well known there. Well, I didn't even realize he was a supervisor there, a
Mhm.
superintendent. So the guy says, "Oh, I know Rooster. Let me give him a call." I said, "No, no, please don't call me." Uh, I said, "Listen, you would really be doing me a tremendous favor if you just hired me on my own merits. I'll start as a helper."
Mm.
He says, "Well, that's where I would have to start you anyway, either a helper or a fire watch is what they called it,
Mhm.
because you don't have any prior qualifications." I said, "That's fine." I said, "So how much do the helpers get paid?" And doing the math back then, I would have been making about 1580 at Entergy, if
Mhm.
you had to look at it for the hourly. Uh, and my friend that never went to college was making $20 an hour. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be somewhere close to this. And that guy said $8.90.
Oh my God.
And I was like, well, that's the cost of indoctrination. Said, I'll take it, no problem.
Okay.
And then he says, well, you're not ready to get, I mean, these guys are going to go directly to work right now for orientation, but you don't even have boots. I said, no, I'll be ready tomorrow. So I didn't even know what boots to get. I went to the worst place to buy boots. The next day I showed up, and I'll tell you, it's an experience. You know, this is what you want to share with young folks, because a lot of times it's not about it's not about doing all the things that you're comfortable with, or the things that look great from the start, right? Sometimes you have to kind of go through something, be totally indoctrinated before you can actually get the benefits out of it. And that's the way I've approached everything. I've always approached everything like I'm not an outsider. This is not my first time. I'm not a visitor. I'm a local. And that's the way I went to the refineries. I was a local. I'm like,
Mhm.
you guys are doing math. That's not difficult to me. You guys are reading drawings that, whether you know it or not, I was just doing that just 3 years ago. I was creating these drawings. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
there was no place for me, because I was a computer guy with industrial design capabilities that was a helper on a project, right? So the so one day, all of that came to a reckoning. You know, it was like 2.5 weeks into the project, and I'm literally handing tools to this guy that's called the pipe fitter, and
Mhm.
he's holding things in place for this welder. And I'm like, I can't believe you guys are getting paid 2 times what I'm getting paid just to do something so simple. And the guy challenged me. He says, "Well, Alexander, if you think you can do this, go ahead, try to do it." And I did it simply.
Mhm.
So he tried me on the next one, and he says, "Well, this one's going to require some math." I'm like, "Oh, uh, this is a simple takeoff." So I started to realize that the skills that I had, were totally suitable for applying to this engineering per se job, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And the guy saw it too, because they would look into their little blue books to get formulas, and I knew those formulas off the top of my head.
Wow. Okay.
So he would say, "Have you ever done this before?" I'm like, "No, I haven't done it before, but I mean, this is Matt. I told you I'm a CAD designer, so I kind of understand this part." He says, "Man, you should go ahead and test out." I'm like, "What do you mean test out?" He said, "There's
Mhm.
an ABC school that starts at 5:30 every day, right outside the gate. You can test out and you can double your money." I said, "Really?" I've only been here for 2.5 weeks now. So sure enough, I find that trailer. I go to take the test. They make me a journeyman pipe fitter, and
Wow.
now I get my money. I'm like 3 weeks in, right? Uh, 3 months later, I'm a foreman.
Mhm.
6 months later, I'm superintendent.
Okay.
And my father still doesn't realize that I'm on the same project that he's on.
Right. I'm dying to ask, what did your daddy say about all this swift advancement? Okay.
So 1999, and I got receipts. You know, Hurricane George is coming into Louisiana, and there's a critical well that needs to be made. And on these refineries, they always give everyone nicknames. So my nickname on the project was Tack, and my welder's nickname was Hot Rod. So I heard someone say, "Hey, we need Tack and a Hot Rod up on this tower to make this critical well. I think Rooster needs you guys right after you finish with that." And
Wow.
that was the first time I heard someone come on our side of the plant and mention my dad. So sure enough, about 20 minutes later, my dad shows up in the lunch tent and he says, "I need Tack and Hot Rod to come over to Butanol 1 with me." And when he sees that it's me, you talk about the look of proud, right? It was probably the LeBron James and Bronny James in a real world working environment, right? And that's really what it was, because at the time, in a very short time, I had proven to these people that in 6 months, I could be probably one of the best hands on the plant. And I actually ended up being that, right?
Mhm.
Listen, a year later, it goes from me being superintendent to night foreman to opening up my own outage program management company.
Wow.
Where because I didn't just take the opportunity to be on these refineries and just do a job. You know, the average person will look at the pipes and look at a job task, and I would look at the pipe, the job task, the process, and how everything works in line with the entire unit for the entire plant. So I was really doing operations in my mind, but doing simple tasks to fulfill the job.
Mhm.
When I expanded that to becoming a full-fledged engineering company, refineries and chemical plants, they they kept seeking me out. You know, we were obviously what they needed, and
Yes.
we were doing things that they hadn't thought of in terms of project management. So that's where my journey started. I started expanding into the void, doing things that I wasn't hired to do anything. You know, when I from the military, I was an E3 that was doing the job of an E9. When I went into the refineries, I was a helper doing the job of a superintendent. When I left that industry and created my own path, it became easier because I started to realize all the blue ocean was right in front of me. You know what I mean? So that's how I transitioned. You know, I went from chemical plants to refineries. I worked at every refinery along the Gulf Coast, and everyone
Wow.
knew my company by name.
I hope you enjoyed the origin story of Dr. Lael Alexander, aka The Wizard. Join me on Pamela Price Unfiltered next week for part 2 of my interview with Dr. Alexander, where he continues to share his journey from Louisiana to Texas to Africa to China and beyond.